and today we're going to explore psychometric tests in all their glory. So, starting at the beginning, could you explain what psychometric tests are and what some of the common types that graduates might face?
Yeah. So the word psychometric comes from essentially the measurement of the mind. Where a psychometric test might differ from something like a quiz you might get in a magazine is that it has been rigorously developed, typically by occupational psychologists, and has some kind of research teeth behind it to say that it does have a link to future job performance. If you think about the typical types of psychometric tests, then what I often like to use is the analogy of a car. So you have tests that look at your ability in a particular area. So that could be analogous to the engine of a car. It looks at your raw intellectual horsepower. And these types of psychometric tests would look at things like your verbal reasoning skills, your numerical reasoning skills, your conceptual thinking skills. Then you have the types of psychometric tests that look at your work style, and those are typically personality questionnaires. So to take the car analogy further, are you a thrusting red Ferrari? Are you a solid, dependable VW? Are you etc., etc. So it looks at your working style and how you like to portray yourself at work. The third type of psychometric test looks at your metaphorical fuel. So how much drive do you have to invest energy at work? What kind of things make you motivated? What kind of things make you demotivated? And that's an interesting one, actually. It's often the missing link when people are recruiting for a job, actually looking at the motivational match. I'd say, just to round out the analogy, often you might find tests that look at your knowledge of a particular subject area. I'd like to see that as the map that you're using to drive with, and tests like that are seeking to measure your specialist knowledge in a particular subject area. For example, accounting tests that look at your accountancy knowledge, or your knowledge of being a psychologist if you want to become a business psychologist. So, but three primary types that would be called psychometric: ability, personality, motivation.
Okay, and thinking then about the graduate job market, why do companies use these sort of tests in their recruitment process?
Yeah, so there's a number of good reasons for using these tests. First and foremost, they've been proven to be valid. And what that means in psych speak is that there's a link between how well you do in these tests and how well you do in the job. What we do is use correlations to look at people's test scores, and we map that to things like managers' ratings once people have been in the job maybe a year or two down the line. And these psychometric tests, or the well-designed ones, show a good level of relationship. So they're valid. That also means that they're legally defensible, and I guess from that comes a number of other advantages. One of them is that they're relatively cheap for the power that they give you. So they're far more predictive of future performance than something like an interview. Even things like group exercises and in-trays, ability tests can outperform them in predicting certain types of behaviour in the workplace. So they're cheap, they're valid, and then there are also other benefits, like the fact that they're fair and objective. So they're not susceptible to things like how you're dressed, that an assessor might make a judgment about you on, your accent, your ethnicity even. That kind of thing is monitored and controlled for when we develop these tests to make sure they're as fair as they can be. I guess the final thing is that they are fairly resilient to changes over time. So personality does shift a little bit according to what's going on in your life at the moment or as you mature, but things like ability are pretty reliable constructs. So again, they provide a sound basis for making these judgments. And it provides ease of comparison. So if you've got 1,000 graduates who are applying for 10 places and you need to get those numbers down because you can't possibly see all these people face to face, then it gives you a common language to compare people for that initial sift to get those numbers down for the more in-depth and more expensive stages of the process.
Definitely makes sense. And having spoken to graduate recruiters recently, and they talk about having 4,000, 5,000 plus applications, as you said, there's no possible way that everyone can be interviewed. So it's an easy way at the beginning to sort the wheat from the chaff.
That's right.
So
that's right.